Have you been stressed, anxious, or worried? Have you felt pangs of loneliness in recent times? Are you longing for greater connection with others in the world around you? In a phrase, are you looking for happiness? You are not alone. Millions of others are seeking this feeling of spiritual, mental, and physical wellness too. This podcast explores the underlying causes of unhappiness and shares with us the secrets of rewriting the frequent thoughts and redirecting the common behaviors that keep us in that state. Join forensic psychologist and best-selling author Dr. Neehall and her guests as they dive deep in the realm of psychological wellness and explore ways of finding happiness on demand.
Hello, I'm Alyn Edwards. Thanks for joining us with this podcast. Clinical psychologist Dr. Joan Neehall has written the Wall Street Journal bestseller, Happy is the New Healthy. It's all about having a happier and better life. In this podcast, Dr. Neehall will talk about the Thanksgiving holiday, what it means to us, and how we can better take this time together with the people we love and the people we care about to make us happy and to make them happier as well. Dr. Neehall.
Today, I'm really thrilled to share with you a talk on gratitude unwrapped, the power of Thanksgiving in our lives. And I'll go through it with an introduction. Following the introduction, I'd like to go through the etiology of how Thanksgiving came about, what are some of the practical things we can do, and what's the science telling us. So if you like the podcast, share it with others. And here's how it goes. Welcome. Today, as we're exploring the essence of gratitude, the significance of Thanksgiving, and how this time of year can help us foster deep connections and happiness in our lives, we need to think in terms of whether you're living on your own, whether you're hurrying in from work right now, listening to this podcast, or you're having a quiet day at home. What's happening internally for you? What are some of the things that you might be thinking about preparing yourself for in terms of giving thanks? So we need to set the stage. We prepare a meal, don't we? The theme today is the power of gratitude. Thanksgiving is much more, in my opinion, than just turkey and cranberry sauce. Wouldn't you agree? It's a time to reflect on what we've been granted in our lives so far, in spite of the misery that might be surrounding us. What am I grateful for? Can I acknowledge the blessings in my life? Can we all do that? Can we express some appreciation to those who matter most to us? You know, I attended a celebration of life the other day. I'm sure you guys do it as well. When there were wonderful things said about this person who had died, or passed, as we say nowadays. And what went through my brain was, why do we have to wait till someone dies to say how wonderful they are? Can we do it now? I mean, we have this saying, you can't take everything to the grave, correct? So why not tell them when they're alive, hey, I want to tell you this now, and leave out the words before you pass. Or as I said to someone recently, you know, we should do this. And my patient said, sure, before they croak. And I said, well, if you're a turkey, if you're, I guess, a frog, yeah. And we burst out laughing. Okay, enough of that. Let's get back into this. So it's a time, as I was saying, to reflect on what we're grateful for. You know, when I stop and think about it, the simple act of gratitude can transform not only our holiday festive season, but our overall well-being. Yeah, that's what I said. I want to prove it to you with the science, what science tells us about it. You know, I could think of a Thanksgiving when my family decided to skip the big feast. Yeah, I was deprived of the turkey and cranberry sauce because guess what? Mom and Dad said we were going to go and volunteer at a soup kitchen. You know, that transformed the way I looked at Thanksgiving, the holiday, forever. We realized that Thanksgiving isn't about what's on the table, but who's around the table and the connections we nurture. Some people call it friendsgiving. And I really like that word, friendsgiving. Now, what does science tell us about happiness and gratitude? Gratitude is the recognition of goodness in our lives and acknowledging that this goodness often comes from outside of ourselves, from other people, from nature, or even a higher self. And I want us to stop and think about that for a minute. In our busyness, can we stop and think about what I'm saying? And that applies to me as well, by the way. And what does research tell us about gratitude? Look, there are many benefits. Emmons and McLeod in 2001 pointed out in their research that gratitude has been linked to improved mental health, greater life satisfaction, and lower levels of anxiety and depression, so lower levels of cortisol, This is very good. And a study in the Journal of Positive Psychology found that people who regularly practice gratitude experience better sleep, reduced stress, and a more optimistic outlook. I think we all deserve that every day. And what about the brain, the prefrontal cortex? What does gratitude do for our synapses? Well, neural pathways come together in neuroplasticity. And when we practice gratitude, it links and it becomes a habit and we do it more often. And that's really powerfully positive, right? When we practice gratitude, our brains release dopamine and serotonin, the feel-good hormones. Those are neurotransmitters, by the way. This not only makes us feel happier, but also helps create a positive feedback loop. That's what I was talking about. Yeah. It encourages us to focus on the good in our lives more often than focusing on the negatives. I challenge you to do it right now. Stop, think about some things that you feel good about. And notice a difference in the way your outlook changes from being very critical, very negative, in spite of the negatives in the world. And I'm saying, let's be ostriches, but let's look at it and temper it with gratitude, something within our control, something that we can use our brains for a change in a healthy way. When I was a child, I used to play tic-tac-toe. Did you do that on the beach? Just throw the stone and see how it jumped? And then looked at the ripple effect?
Yes.
Yeah, and you know what? When you express gratitude, you can positively influence relationships and social interaction. And I told you a few minutes ago that this Thanksgiving is Friendsgiving, building community, more of a not me and we, but what Dan Siegel calls MWE, M-W-E, us. When we express gratitude, we strengthen our relationships. Research shows that partners who show appreciation for each other often experience more relationship satisfaction and are less likely to feel lonely or isolated. So here's the thing. I do it with my couples, for instance. I say, before you give the one negative, give me 5 positives. And then I'll be able to accept the negative. I'll be more receptive to changing and listening. Correct? We're not going to be defensive if you plaster all of those positives on me, and they're genuine ones, by the way, they're not fake. All of a sudden, that makes sense. I can do that. And I teach people to do that, the power of giving negative feedback in a positive way. It's so positive that you don't even realize there was negative in it. And that's so good. So that's what I call the ripple effect of gratitude. Now let's turn for a moment to Thanksgiving traditions and their deeper meaning. Where did it come from? Well, they tell me in 1621, the Pilgrims and the Native Americans developed Thanksgiving to say thanks for the harvest. And you know what that means. I come from the prairies, a place that's really cold in the winter. We're on the same line of latitude Alberta is, and Russia. So you know what I'm talking about. So the farmers dig out the root vegetables, they prepare the harvest, they prepare food for long winters. The women would be thinking back in the day of canning, preserves. Do you remember that? That's what Thanksgiving is all about. It's not just eating on that day and saying thank you, but also preparing for the future. And when we think of the future today, a lot of people tell me it's so negative with polarization, with epidemics, and so on and so forth. I don't have to refresh your memory. But what I am saying is, can we think future-oriented based on what we can prepare for today with a grateful heart and a mind that's changing and moving towards the goodness that's there, if we but look? While the first Thanksgiving is often attributed to the Pilgrims and Native Americans, cultures around the world have always celebrated harvest festivals, giving thanks to nature's bounty. And they've done this for hundreds of years, and they will continue doing it. And I think it's really good. So remember, what I'm talking about now is not just the meal, but community, caring. What do we do today? Back in the past, I talked about canning and preserves. Today, our traditions change. It's changed into nuclear family feast. We have smaller families, football games, parades, and all of these things contribute to a sense of togetherness, community, and gratitude. Each family has its own unique traditions, whether it's sharing what we're thankful for before the meal or participating in a Thanksgiving or a Friendsgiving celebration. These rituals remind us to slow down, to be present, to appreciate the people around us. And I like this business of slowing down because I think we need to do that to really contemplate. Now, can we create a new Thanksgiving tradition? Some people create a gratitude jar. Throughout the year, they throw things into the jar that they're grateful for. And on Thanksgiving, some of them are pulled open, and a lot of laughter comes through at times. I remember a client telling me that her 6-year-old had thrown in something, and she pulled it out, and it said, "Thank you, no more liver. No liver." She said, "Okay, I get it." Look, you can do thank you letters to people you love. Don't just do an email. That's so impersonal. Get on the blower, get on the telephone. Tell someone you really like them. Volunteer as a family. Make that part of your Thanksgiving ritual. Are you going to do a drive with your family to do something for the neighborhood? Pick up something, pick up waste from the streets, whatever it is, the sky's the limit and so is the road. Okay, make it something personal that's unique to your family. Make it fun. Above all, we need fun. We need some laughter. Now, I want to go into the practical ways to cultivate gratitude during Thanksgiving. What are some of the things we can do? Well, one of the things I do in my family is before the meal, someone says something that they're grateful for. Some families have a grace before meals, a prayer before. Most of us will go around the table and talk about things that we're grateful for, and we limit it to one thing, and we make it funny as well. It's something like, it doesn't have to be good health. It could be something as simple as a moment of laughter. When this happened, I laughed, and then we can relive memories of things that make us happy. This helps everyone to connect on a deeper level. Oh, I didn't know that. Then we can have gratitude exercises. Everyone has heard of the 3 good things exercise, I'm sure. Each day leading up to Thanksgiving, write down 3 good things that happened to you and why they happened. I like the idea of why they happened, because with patients who are depressed, when they write down things that went well for them and why, they realize that they have a lot more agency than they give themselves credit for. So that's a good one, huh? I'm very visual. And for those of you subscribers and listeners who are visual, you can do this exercise with me. Take a few minutes, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and picture a person who has positively made an impact in your life. Imagine yourself expressing your appreciation to that person. Take as long as you wish to do this. Put a pause on the podcast. When you're finished, you will notice that you have feelings of warmth and deeper connection. For some patients of mine, I encourage them, if the person is still alive, get out there, ring the doorbell, and let them know. And what about expressing gratitude to loved ones? You know, they're with us all the time. How often do we say, I love you? How often do we write a letter to them and surprise them with a little token of appreciation, a small gift, a gift of self? Now, here's the one that is perhaps the most important for me as a psychologist working with you. Gratitude for ourselves. In my happiness control panel, I call it kindness to yourself. Can you stop and practice some self-compassion? It's so easy to put ourselves down, to berate ourselves, to be critical, hypercritical. And whose voice is that? And is that really being kind and generous on Thanksgiving? I remember when I was a resident, a new intern, seeing a patient for the first time and then enjoying, or shall I say, tormenting myself with 4 weeks of sleepless or interrupted sleep nights, wondering how I could have done it better. Well, 40 years later, I've sped up the process and now it just takes me 3 nights. So you know what I'm saying. Whatever it is, it's okay for us to absorb and to be humble and to say, yes, I could do it in a different way. And I can also appreciate my resilience, my courage, my humility, and my willingness to change, to learn. That's self-compassion, huh? And true humility, by the way. So how about this Thanksgiving, practicing gratitude to yourself and creating that internal boundary? You know, nowadays we talk about boundaries, and I have to establish boundary with Mary Jane and Tom, Dick, and Harry. Okay, fine. But can you do the internal boundary of saying no to yourself when you want to self-flagellate, when you want to beat yourself up inappropriately? And I underscore the word inappropriately. And temper that with my 5s. Remember the high 5? Give yourself 5 things that you appreciate about the process now. Then gratitude has got to extend beyond the holidays. It's got to be beyond what we're doing right now. So Thanksgiving reminds me to be grateful. But imagine if you and I can carry that same spirit throughout the year. The whole year. You can set a gratitude reminder on your phone, keep a gratitude journal, or simply take a few moments each day to acknowledge the blessings in your life. Now, look, you might say to me, Joan, that sounds hokey. Okay, fine. I know that it sounds like something that you won't do, and I'll tell you why you won't do it. Because after a while, you go on the hedonic treadmill, you get used to it, and it gets boring, and you don't do it. And I'm with you on that. That's not what I'm saying, though. I'm saying every day, surprise yourself by something that you found that, hey, really appreciated that. Surprise yourself with gratitude. Surprise yourself with joy. Like right now, I'm working with you. I'm looking outside and feeling that sunshine coming through. Wow, that's pretty neat. Simple thing. You know who talks about that? Dasher Kelter talks about it, being surprised by awe. Like going out in nature and going, wow, that was awesome. That's for another podcast. Now look, think in terms of reflection. Thanksgiving is a time to reflect. Take a moment of silence and just encourage yourself to stop and think and pause. I think of a story from one of my patients, Sarah. who shared how expressing gratitude transformed her relationship with her parents. Let me tell you a little bit about Sarah. She was 16 when I saw her for the first time, and she had oppositional defiant behavior. So if you said to her no, she assumed it meant yes. And as we worked little by little, I invited her to take a different pathway. And I suggested it was just an invitation. There would be bumps along the way, and I didn't have the answers. But could we go on this roadway together? It was just an invitation. During that invitation, we went through different layers of the onion, and at the end of it all, her parents were so impressed with her gentleness, her gratitude, her ability to give and receive negative feedback. So you see, Thanksgiving transcends just the turkey. It goes deeper into the layers of our psyche, of who we are, who we want to be, the best version of ourselves now. So I just want to give each of you a heartfelt thank you. I'm so grateful to you for being part of this community of happiness on demand. I wish you, your family, your loved ones, your pets, your friends, a joyous, gratitude-filled Thanksgiving. Thank you for listening. Al, do you have some questions?
Sure. Why is Thanksgiving not a joyous occasion for everybody?
That is such a good question, Al. For some people, it's like Christmas, like any major holiday. It is filled with grief. It could bring back memories of loss. It could be because of the economy, not being able to afford the lavish spread, the full spread. It could be because you're depressed. It could be that you're suffering from the epidemic of loneliness and isolation. You see what a good question that is, because there are many levels. It's layers upon layers as to why. It could be financial. I mean, look at it. If you and I are in Sudan right now, we're not thinking Thanksgiving. We're thinking, can we get any water? So I'm talking about the fact that there are definite economic reasons why people can't. There's also the erosion of the nuclear family. It isn't just the erosion of religion as such. That's formal religion seems to have eroded quite significantly in this era. But I'm saying that our nuclear family has got smaller. People are moving to different provinces or states, and therefore the whole business of Thanksgiving or Christmas or whenever, let's get together as a family and have a meal, has slowly and subtly disintegrated. So we could do something like Friendsgiving, have friends over. If you have a table set for 10 and it's you and your husband or you and your partner, how about inviting some other people over? They'd be very grateful, wouldn't they?
You've talked about how there's an increase in the numbers of people living alone. Would that be a factor?
Yes, that's what I was talking about when I said the epidemic of loneliness and people on their own here. You know what? That reminds me of a person. I'll give her a different name. We'll call her Susan. So I was at a social event, a birthday party recently, Al. And the person I'll call Susan, I asked her, what are you doing for Thanksgiving? And she says, well, probably nothing, because I don't have family here. My brother is going to be away. She's from a different province. And so I said, well, why don't you join us for Thanksgiving? Oh, that'll be an imposition. I said, I don't think it'll be an imposition. We're going to a buffet at the golf club. Come on with us. And then another friend of mine in my yoga class said to me, can you take care of my husband? I said, excuse me. She says, yes, I'm going to Winnipeg to be with my daughter and grandson for Thanksgiving. Can you invite him over? I said, of course. So in came John. I'll give him a different name. And so these people are going to be part of the Thanksgiving dinner that we're having that I'm not cooking. All right. But that's an example of people living on their own. And then if they're on their own, unfortunately, not all of them are going to be like the people in my life who are vocal and saying, hey, this is what's happening. So it's up to us to ferret out these people, I think, and be humble enough to ask, hey, I've got a table set. Do you mind coming? Something like that would really help, you know?
That's a nice way of putting it. Do you mind coming instead of would you like to come, which leaves it open to people thinking that would be an imposition. I can think back in my life where in my family, Thanksgiving was a big deal. We had a summer cottage. We all went to the summer cottage. The leaves were falling. The lake was bright with reflections of leaves. Wood smoke was in the air. These are the memories I have. It's hard to recreate that when you're older. And I think a lot of people harken back to that era, and it may make them sad that they can't recreate that. But in your book, Happy is the New Healthy, you talk about making changes, doing things.
Exactly. And I love what you just said because it brought back memories of my days in Alberta where we had a lake property on Pigeon Lake. And you won't believe me, we'd see the black swans on Thanksgiving weekend flying on that and being on that lake. And you're right, you know, the fire, it was a simple little cabin. It wasn't much, but the rituals that we had there were so beautiful. And we can, I think, recreate those memories by sharing them around the Thanksgiving table with some different people. These are the Thanksgiving stories we can share. So they're not lost forever. It's like memories and photographs. They're not lost. Nowadays, we can throw them into the cloud. Well, I think what you're talking about is a very important point that more listeners need to pay attention to.
I have a friend that told me recently in a phone call, well, nobody ever calls him. But I reminded him that he doesn't call anybody as well. And I think that people need to learn how to reach out for friendships. And that's very much in your book.
Yes. And, you know, it's difficult because, you know, we were colonized by the Brits and, you know, the stiff upper lip, and we're not supposed to ask for things, correct? We don't ask if we get invited. Oh, thank you very much. It's like your friend who won't pick up the phone. Now, that might just be a learned pattern of behavior on his part that might be difficult to change, by the way, if it's intrinsic to him. And he sees that as the way of being. If it doesn't affect him negatively, it's not a problem. But if it does affect him negatively, he needs to change the behavior. But yeah.
In your book, you talk about people should be reaching out to others and others should be reaching out to people that are lonely. There's some definitive signs, are there not, that people need companionship, they need help? What are those signs?
The signs of needing companionship, or
yes. Yeah.
It's not okay. So there's loneliness and creative solitude. If you are enjoying creative solitude, there's nothing the matter with that. You and I obviously crave solitude at times, and we will carve out portions of our day to be alone. But when you are chronically on your own experiencing loneliness, it could be situational loneliness that we talked about in a different podcast, that all of a sudden I've moved to a different province and I don't know anyone. It could be a change in marital status. I've become a widow or widower. That could be a different reason. It could be something like a seasonal affective disorder, the change in the sunshine, the shortness of the days that affects people and makes them feel a bit of dysthymia or a low grade form of depression. All of these things would contribute or snowball into loneliness. And what are the signs? One of the things you might look at is this person becoming very withdrawn, not wanting to talk to other people? You invite them out and they consistently say no for no reason, you know, and there could be some underlying causes, and you could gently probe and ask them if they'd like to join you. Would you mind coming out with me for a walk? If you realize that it is something severe, Al, then I think it's important to notify a family member and encourage them to go and seek professional help. Because the research shows that is tantamount, that severity of loneliness is tantamount to smoking 2 packages of cigarettes a day.
Very unhealthy.
Just as bad for your physical health. Just as bad. It shortens your lifespan. It's in our DNA to be social animals, to interact with others.
Anything else you'd like to say on how people can better manage the Thanksgiving holiday and be happier and more social?
Focus on mui, what my colleague Daniel Siegel calls mui. Now, he's a psychiatrist, an eminent psychiatrist who has developed mindfulness. And in his book, he calls it MWE. It's no longer me and it's not we, it's us together. So how can we as a group help each other? And that's what I'm talking about today in this podcast, building community. And if you can't, can you be grateful with what you have?
Wonderful advice. Thank you, Dr. Joan Neehall. In your book, you talk a lot about the antidote for loneliness is connection. You detail strategies for people getting together with community, with friends, for long-lasting relationships and a happier life. Please subscribe to this podcast. You get a lot of information. I know I learn a lot. I learned a lot from reading Dr. Neehall's book, Happy is the New Healthy. And thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining this discussion on happiness. We hope this helps to inspire you to lead a more joyful life. To dive deeper into the subject of happiness, be sure to check out Dr. Neehall's book, Happy is the New Healthy, available as an ebook or hardcover. For additional resources, visit our website at drneehall.com. Until next time, stay happy.